Thank you everyone for being here today on this very, very momentous occasion. Thank you for everyone who's helped put this together, and especially our guests of honour. It's a real privilege to be here. I'm going to hand over to the Imperial President, Paul Beaumont now, who's going to say a few words on behalf of Imperial College. Thank you again, and thank you, Brian Rogers, so much for being here.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As the current president of Imperial College Union, I have the great pleasure and immense privilege of offering you all a very warm welcome back to Imperial College London, and specifically the Union. Imperial College Union is incredibly lucky to have such a brilliant and rich history in all the things we do: art, sport, recreational activities, and of course music. Queen's story is certainly the music story that I and everyone else who does tours around college tell students when they're visiting or prospective new students. Music is still, I'm sure you'll be very glad to hear, an integral part of what goes on here. Live music, some professional acts, some groups who are just starting out, but mainly student-led groups now perform on this stage here in our new nightclub, Metric, as well as on the concert hall stage upstairs, where Queen started out. The whole college is incredibly proud to have played, however small, a part in what will become a global phenomenon, and I was delighted that PRS for Music has chosen to honour the site of one of Queen's very first gigs to host this event here today with Brian and Roger and so many friends, family and peers. On that note, I'd like to hand over to the PRS chairman, Guy Fletcher, for the unveiling of the plaque.
Thanks very much. My name's Guy Fletcher. I'm chairman of the Performing Rights Society. I'm going to take this opportunity to let everyone know what we do. We represent 95,000 songwriters and composers. We are a monopoly, actually, so that we represent all songwriters and composers in this country. We license their music, collect their money, and pay them. So we're kind of at the epicenter of the copyright business, the business of songwriting, which has never been better represented than by these guys here. I've been a songwriter for 50 years myself, and in common with my colleagues, I can tell you that in a very long career, if you have half a dozen real successes, real spikes of success, you're doing really well. These guys occupy a whole other order of magnitude. The stuff that most songwriters can only dream of. 16 #1 albums, 18 #1 singles, 300 million records sold. And it all started here on the 18th of July 1970, their first proper gig. This award, the Heritage Plaque, is unique really in that it allows us to recognise two things. We obviously honour an iconic band or a successful group, but it also helps us to recognise the value of live music and the important part that venues play in the life of live music. So that's what makes this special. Freddie, Brian, Roger and John over the past 40 years have touched generation after generation of music lovers, with the consequence that their fan base stretches from 8 to 80. This is evidenced on a daily basis by all the people that pack in to see We Will Rock You in London, now going into its 12th, is it 12th year? 11 or 12 years, it's a lot. Well, this is our 13th Music Heritage Award, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to present it not only to Brian and Roger, but also to this august seat of learning. The Imperial College has produced some of the world's greatest names in medicine, astrophysics, biology, and at least one rock legend who is both a rock legend and an astrophysicist. It's a first for us, and the PRS Heritage Award serves to remind us that you can't replace live music. And this little plaque here, which actually will be fixed outside in Prince Consort Road permanently, will remind everybody of the Queen legacy and the role that venues play in launching the careers of our best musicians. It's a privilege to be here, to be amongst so many friends, family, peers, and perhaps even those who are looking down on us from above. It's a very special moment, as was the 18th of July 1970. That too was a special moment. I'm going to unveil this thing before it grows dust. Thank you very much for listening. Watch this. Come on up, boys.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you, Guy. I've just had enough already. Shall I go first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Guy. That's a fantastic speech, and thank you very much also to the President of the Union. Very well spoken. I didn't realise I was going to feel so much about this, really. It is an amazing thing for us to see this happen, and to realise that we've become sort of part of history in so many ways, but in particular in this building, where it actually did all start. I remember very distinctly, as if it were yesterday, meeting Roger in the little room on the next floor in that corner, which then, in those days, was the jazz club room. And Roger sat down and started sort of tapping around the edges of the drums. I went, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm tuning the drums." And I said, "I've never seen anybody do that before." Because the people that I played, we basically just hit things. And Roger was a craftsman, and as soon as he started to play, something amazing happened to me. I have to say, you know, he had a particular way of combining the elements of what he was doing. And as soon as I started playing with him, something kind of magical happened. I have to say, it sounds corny, but it did. It happened instantly. We just gelled. And actually, our history starts and continues, because in the next room over, it's currently some sort of refectory there, but it used to be a kind of lounge bar, and we used to play there as Smile, Roger and me and Tim Staffel, and we used to just come in and basically jam. We played things like If I Were a Carpenter for about half an hour, kind of improvising and feeling our way, and it was very loud. So some people loved it, and some people, you know, we got into kind of trouble with it because it wasn't very cool to be doing that in those days. It was all right if you were playing jazz, that was kind of a recognisable thing, that was okay if you were playing classical. But, you know, rock music was very much frowned upon, and it was not a discipline in any sense in those days. You couldn't study to be a rock star. So I'm really, really thrilled that we are now part of the fabric of this building. And thank you so much to PRS. It's funny, it's the sort of thing that you expect to happen when you're dead, isn't it? I'm very happy that we're still alive to enjoy this.
Absolutely, yeah, great.
Roger will now...
Well,
Really?
oh, thanks, Brian. I mean, you sort of said it all really, but I didn't actually go to England. I was at the London Hospital Medical Works on the other end of town, but I lived around here, and we did sort of grow up in this building. So this Union building really was sort of mine, really, as well. And so in that sense, we really did start here in the old jazz room up there. And we did do our first important shows here. And we grew up, we used to rehearse in the lecture theatres over the road there near the town. And so it really was a seminal part of our origin. And this is actually very nice. I found myself quite effective when the curtains went back. And I gather it's going outside in Prince Consort Road. So that's it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much, PRS. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
privilege that Brian and Rob have actually just said quite a lot, but Denise was just going to ask a couple of questions, and if any of you guys want to ask a couple of questions, we'll do this quickly in about 10 minutes, and everyone can have a drink.
Yeah, but there's a lot we could say.
Yeah.
If you want to ask.
So you have to stand a bit,
Yeah, don't go away. We will do Q&A. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do you remember most about that night in 1970?
Well, that was pretty special. That was upstairs in what we used to call the Great Hall. I don't know what you call it these days. But I was on the entertainments committee. I wasn't the president. One of my best mates, Dennis, was president, and I just drunk a beer out of his mug because his tankard is engraved with his name. So we used to book all kinds of acts. Like we used to book Spooky Tooth, Steam Hammer, the bands of the day, Jethro Tull. We booked Jimi Hendrix up there. There were 1,000 people in there watching Jimi Hendrix. And I think it was only a couple of years later that suddenly we were actually playing in that hall, and it was packed. And I couldn't believe it, really. Suddenly we were sort of in the place that we dreamed of being. And I think, for me, as I remember, it was one of the first times when I realised that people actually knew our material and knew who we were. We weren't just trying to convert people. There was something going on out there. People knew what we were and they were excited. And we got our first review ever, I think, which was by Rosemary Poronit in a magazine called Disc. Yeah. So, but it was an amazing night, just amazing night, sort of dreamlike, I think, in its intensity. What do you remember, Roger?
Well, we had so many experiences up in that hall, not all of them repeatable. And I do remember seeing some great bands, Mighty Baby, Mott the Hoople, T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex, and some of all sorts of Procol Harum,
Deep Purple,
Deep Purple, yeah. So, you know, it's a great, that room up there is part of music history, really.
So what was the live circuit like back in the day then for you?
Well, thin, actually. Without colleges, it really wouldn't have existed. You know, there's so much more available today with all the festival, the entire culture of festivals, which is a massive part of the English way of life now, it seems. But they were very few and far between then. And so it was the college circuit that was really the lifeblood of live music.
It was, it really was. Yeah, I think further to what Guy said, you know, in a sense, colleges kept live music alive in those days because there was nowhere else to play. It was very difficult, and I think it was hard to make a living, as perhaps it is now. I don't know, but it certainly was in those days because there just weren't the venues to play. And I remember seeing like the Who in strange little sort of bars in Soho, you know, and it wasn't until you broke into the real big time that there was a career to be had.
It was tough because it was a catch-22 situation with, you know, you couldn't get a record deal unless you'd been seen live, and you couldn't get a gig unless you had a record deal, and so it was quite hard to break into that circle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when did you know that you'd made it then? At what point did you suddenly go, oh?
I don't know if you ever know.
There's no such thing as overnight success or a particular point. It's just a sort of gradual thing, really, even though it sometimes seems to other people like an overnight thing. So,
yeah, gradual thing.
Top of the pops, probably.
You went from playing here to live aids in massive stadiums around the world. How did you take to that leap? Did it feel natural for you to sort of progress from the stadium?
Well, as Roger said, it wasn't really a leap, it just happened very gradually, and I think we had what we thought were big ideas in those days. You know, we thought one day maybe we'll play the Rainbow, and one day maybe we'll do this, but really everything that happened exceeded our dreams. We did play the Rainbow shortly after this, which was amazing. But I'd never heard of Madison Square Garden, I'd never heard of the Budokan in Tokyo, I'd never heard of Sao Paulo or Rio gigs or whatever, you know, and really everything that happened after about 1977 was way beyond any dreams that I'd ever had. I just didn't realise that world was out there. So it was an incredible journey for us. Always a bit more, always a bit better, and we were excited. We were always excited about, what can we do next time? and we played Madison Square Garden for the first time. I flew my parents out there, and when we finished we said, oh, maybe we can do it twice next time, you know, and we did. There's a kind of campaign, oh, three, Roger would remember these things. So there was always the next goal, and it was a blast. It was an amazing journey, and still is, I have to say, it still is.
There's lots more I'd like to ask you, but I understand that there's probably a few questions from the room. So, is there anybody else that would like to speak?
So.
My name is George Butcher. I'm from IC Radio, the IC Radio. Now I started since you were here, the student radio station at Imperial College. Because how we started off in the Justin Rock room, and they were supposed to be in concert hall, and ICO Radio like extended an invitation to come back to us, and perhaps do it after the radio, even the big maybe. So I wondered if you'd like to start opportunity at some point.
What could we do? How do I say that?
There's a common instrument around here. No one knows how to use them anymore.
How about fee structure?
The volunteer structure at IC Radio, so if you that would be fantastic if you realise you have to schedule thanks to the invitation.
Thank you. We should pop in.
And if you have any advice for students in Imperial who are sort of going, I really love doing live music, whatever, but at the same time, I'm my course, my life, my good degree. How would you strike that balance? And any advice for Imperial students for that? Thank you.
How do you get the balance? Well, when you're young, you can just do everything all the time, can't you? That's the great thing. I can't anymore. Well, still try probably. I still don't sleep. But you know, we worked very hard at our studies. We enjoyed it. You know, I was stimulated by physics and astronomy, and we worked really hard on our music as well. And we just, I suppose, a change was always as good as the rest. I also taught for 4 years. No, I taught for a year because I'd done 4 years on my postgraduate, and that was just the point. You know, I remember I was teaching in the day, and we were rehearsing in the evenings, and I was trying to write up my PhD during the night, and then suddenly we just thought we should do this. You know, the opportunity came, and we thought if we don't go off and be this strange entity called Queen, which we just created, if we don't go off and do this now, we'll regret it for the rest of our lives, because this is a door opening, and doors do not open very often.
No, one shot.
So if you want advice, that would be my advice. You know, work hard, look for the doors to open, but when the door opens, you have to walk through, and it's scary.
I will give you age my number at the end. So.
Great.
Is there anybody else?
Lucy from the Times, down the front there, Lucy. Oh.
I can just shout something. Can you share any anecdotes of how you were feeling at this very first gig? Any nerves, any things that didn't go quite to plan in the very early days?
I think you, at that age, you're often full of probably misplaced confidence, but you might call it a certain arrogance that you probably learn isn't probably not, I don't know, correct, but I think you have a lot of faith in yourself, but you need that, you know, and so I don't think we were that nervous. You sort of believed in what we were doing, I think.
Yeah, sometimes I think you get more nervous as you get older because you've got sort of more to lose in a sense. I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, we were young and we were full of ideas and we thought we were better than anyone else, sort of precociously. And, you know, we just went out to conquer the world in a sense. And it was foolish in a sense. It was like ridiculous. But somehow it worked out, you know. And we haven't really mentioned Freddie, you know. The beginnings of Roger and myself were with Tim Stafford. We were called Smile, and we did play in the room next to the bar, which was a sort of lounge bar. A few times we jammed, as I said. But by the time we came back to do this gig up here, we were Queen as such, and Freddie was with us, and so was John. And of course, Freddie used to come and see Roger and I play in the early days, and basically criticise. This is very good, but you should do this, you should do this, you know, you should be an act, and you know, you should give everything you can. Freddie was so full of ideas and dreams and plans in his head. He had great visions, both musically and visually, and it was an amazing coming together. The very first things we did were actually over in Mech End. We used to I had a sort of relationship with one of the old professors who did the bookings, and he allowed us sort of at great cost to go into one of the lecture theatres in Mecca and rehearse. And we actually did a couple of little tiny gigs there. We invited people from the record business, hoping that they would discover us and give us a record deal. And of course, nobody ever did. And so we played, and we made our own popcorn and orange juice and sold it. You know, there's probably 100 people at each gig. So they were the very first gigs we ever did with Freddie and with a bass player who actually with 2 or 3 bass players. We worked our way through bass players until we found John, luckily. Yeah. So there's a whole history went on with us here, you know, and this part was the main restaurant, as I remember. We used to queue up in the evenings to eat, and that part over there was the sandwich bar. We used to go every lunchtime and be afraid to talk to people. Everyone becomes a rock star because I'm talking too much now. People become rock stars because they have to.
Maybe one more question.
Just wanted to check, when did you realise that there was also decent earning to make from the copyright of your songs, in addition to the live?
We didn't plant her.
I can't see you, where are you?
I'm over here.
Oh. When did we discover that there was money to be made?
Yeah, from understanding the copyright value of your writing.
I think it's a slow realisation, I think. You don't really realise the inherent value of a song, a successful song. I think you're not in it for that at the time. And you also don't dream that your songs are going to last 40 or 50 years, whatever. So it doesn't really occur to you, but it does occur to you with the passing of time. Yeah. But that wasn't really on our minds at the time. But I'm very glad that it does exist.
You might make a few pennies for it.
If we could, first I'd like to also extend my thanks to Olivia, who's organised today, and if we could ask Guy to come up for a photograph. Big clap for Olivia, thank you very much. And all the team, if we could get a photograph with Guy and the guys on the track, if that's all right. And I'll take that.
Like vultures.
And then there'll be just John for everyone, just this last here.
Here you go,
and grab your line on the tap, that's good. And come on, and Roger, that's good. Gentlemen, 12 please. And then once more to the left hand side, please. And Roger, is that better?